Hello everyone! For today's video, we're gonna talk about the psychological perspective of the self. So let's get started.
So here are the table of contents.
Psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. It encompasses the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how we think, act, and feel. Also, psychology has a various ways of understanding a person and the therapist's way of helping people understand themselves. So as you may observe, psychology is focusing on the cognitive aspects, so the mental processes, and how processes in the mind can actually affect how we conduct it in our behavior. So basically, that's it. Self by definition is a reference by an individual to the same individual person, having its own or single character as a person, referring to the person as same individual. So, current psychological thought that the person plays an integral part in the human motivation, cognition, affect, and human identity. The psychology of the self is the study of the cognitive or affective representation of one's identity. So, the cognitive is involving conscious intellectual activities such as thinking, reasoning, or remembering. For example, do a simple jigsaw puzzle and memory games. So let's go to the affective. Affective is relating to, arising from, or influencing feelings, mood, and emotion. For example, Ma'am Angela's music caused a long-awaited affective reaction. In modern psychology, the earliest formulation of the self is derived from the distinction, the self as I and self as me. The self as I is the subjective knower, or in here is how you view yourself. While in the self as me, this is the objective that is known. And this is how others see you, or you are being generalized by other people. So, they are differently. Let us say an individual wanted to think about themselves as an analytic object. They might ask themselves the question, what kind of person I am? That person is still in that moment thinking from some perspective, which also consider the self. Thus, in this case, the self is both what is doing and thinking, and also at the same time, the object that's being thought about.
William James, a psychologist, has introduced his document, The Principles of Psychology 1890, a numeric concept and distinct of selves. For James, his main concept of selves are the me-self and the I-self. The me-self is the phenomenal self, the experienced self, or the self as known. It is the self that has experienced the phenomena and who had known the situations. The I-self is the self-taught or the self-knower. The I-self refers to what people see or perceive themselves doing in the physical worlds. For example, realizing that they are walking, eating, or writing. Whereas the me-self is more individual and psychological phenomenon, referring to people reflection about themselves. Part I examples characterizing oneself as athletic, smart, cooperative. Other name for the self-referential concept that characterize the me-self include self-viewing, self-schema, and self-concept. William James has three categories. The first is constitute, the second is the feeling and emotions, the arouse self-feelings, and the third is the action to which they prompt self-seeking and preventions.
We have three subcategories such as material self, social self, and spiritual self. The first one is material self. Material self is constituted by our bodies, clothes, immediate family, and home. It is in this that we are attached more deeply into, and therefore, we must be affected by because of the investment we give to these things. From the word itself, these are the material things that we use. Example of this, your clothes reflect certain aspect of your personality. The second one is social self. based on our interaction, society, and the reaction of people towards us. It is our social self that thought to have multiple divergence or different versions of ourselves. It varies as how we present ourselves to a particular social group. In social self, it deals with relationship towards other people. Whenever you interact with your family, friends, or relatives, you can gain knowledge and lessons from them. The last one is spiritual self. Spiritual self, the most intimate because it is more satisfying for the person that they have the ability to argue and discriminate one's more sensitive, conscience, and indomitable will. In this, it reflects our values, beliefs, and morals. Example of this is whenever you go to a place of worship, you will feel free, happy, because you will feel the presence of the Lord.
Carl Rogers had come up with his conception of self through the intervention he used for his client, the person-centered term. It is a non-directive intervention because believes that all people have their potential to solve their own problems. Rogers believed that people must be fully honest with themselves in order to have personal discovery on oneself. In this concept of self, he had come up with 3 sides of triangle. So basically, being honest with yourself can make life easier, less complicated, and lot more beautiful. You can become less dependent on others and more dependent on yourself. You start loving yourself with all your flaws, and that turning point toward contentment and inner peace. In the concept of self, the first one is perceived self. Self-worth. How the person sees self and others sees them. The best example for this is the body image. The second one is real self. Self-image. How the person really is. It is intrinsically who they actually are. This is the way they think, feel, look, and behave. For example, I am in love right now. Lastly, ideal self. It is how the person would like to be. For example, I want to be a professional teacher in the future.
Concept of unified and multiple self. As Daniel C.W. 2016 wrote in his article, Psychoanalysis versus Postmodern Psychology has emphasized how Freud perceived person as a unified beings and Jurgen's concept of multiple selves. In Freud's concept, he argued that mind is divided into 3 connected but distinct parts: ID, ego, and superego. ID, the center of primitive animalistic impulses. Superego, the center for ethical imperative, the one reminds the self of what is wrong of following morality principle. Ego, the moderator between these two, which was driven by rationality principle. Hidden emotion. In Sigmund Freud's version of the human character, every people behaves in line with those 3 elements, and that is the ID, ego, and superego. For Freud, we're generally actors within the drama of our minds, driven by a way of means of choice, pulled by a way of means of sense, of right and wrong. Have you ever felt overpowered by a way of means of an exceptional sturdy urge, impulses, or choice? According to Freud, choices comes from a part of your character known as the ID, placed within the expanses of our thoughts. Whenever you spot a selfish, spoiled toddler within the grocery shop, annoying a toy and throwing a tantrum, if he would not get his want, you will recognize that this is the ID in action. The ID is a kind of container that holds our goals. Relentlessly pushed by a way of means of a pressure, Freud known as the libido, the collective strength of life instincts, and could to survive. The ID should be satisfied. So preserve in thoughts that a massive a part of your character includes your goals and your tries to fulfill them. Enter the ego. Wouldn't or not, it's first rate if you may get the whole thing you decide each time. But you decide it. The ego is Freud's second intellectual equipment of character. The ego accomplishes the vital project by way of means of converting, diverting, and reworking the effective forces of the ID into extra, beneficial, and practical modes of pride. It tries to harness the ID strength, regulating with the intention to attain pride notwithstanding the boundaries of reality. While the ego negotiates with the ID, seeking to save you every offer or other tantrum, the superego judges the performance. The superego is the third Freud's intellectual equipment of character. Superego is the one who every other call in our consciousness. Our senses of right and wrong comes from our dad and mom of a parental figure. Freud has stated two important divisions of mind. Conscious are the thoughts that we are aware of. For example, a person can concentrate on the wind blowing out the window while paying attention to his own pattern of breathing. Unconscious are thoughts that we are not aware of. The most common example of unconscious behavior is the Freudian slip. It's a phenomenon where a person makes a memory or a verbal mistake, calling a spouse's name by the ex name or using the wrong word for something. Listeners often interpret these mistakes as the speaker's hidden emotion.
Kenneth Jurgen. Jurgen was born on 1935. He is an American social psychologist and emeritus professor at Swarthmore College. Jurgen has published over 300 articles in journal magazines and books, and his major books include Towards Transformation in Social Knowledge, The Saturated Self, Realities and Relationship, and An Invitation to Social Construction. According to Kenneth Jurgen, proponent of postmodern psychology, the individual has many potential selves. He carries within him the capacity to identify himself, whether warm or 24-25 cold, dominant or submissive, sexy or plain. How we bring ourselves in every situation will help him get through for a day. Therefore, maybe it is healthy to have many masks. Multiple selfhood is a part of what it means to be human. And forcing oneself to stick to oneself concept may be unhealthy. Humans have a lot of potential within ourselves, wherein we use those potentials in our daily lives and experiences. Based on Kenneth Jurgen, it is better to have multiple selfhood because people can have different ways to interact with the different situations rather than sticking on one self-concept.
Carl Jung. Self, according to Carl Jung, signifies the unification of consciousness and unconsciousness in the person and representing the psyche as a whole. It is realized as the product of individuals, which in his view is the process of integrating various aspects of one personality. Carl Jung is recognized as one of the most influential psychiatrists of all time. He founded analytical psychology and was among the first experts in his field to explore the religious nature behind human psychology. Erik Erikson stage of psychosocial development. Erikson maintained that personality develops in undetermined order through 8 stages of psychosocial development. From infancy to adulthood, during each stage, the person experiences of psychosocial crisis which could have a positive or negative outcome for personality development. For Erikson, 1958 to 1963, these crises are of psychosocial nature because they involve psychological needs of the individual, conflicting with the needs of society. According to the theory, successful completion of each stage results in healthy personality and the acquisition of basic virtues. Basic virtues are the characteristic strengths when the ego can use to resolve subsequent crises. Erikson's stage of social development is a comprehensive psychological theory that identifies a series of 8 stages. And the theory claims the healthy person should pass through all 8 stages. Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development contributed to our understanding of personality development throughout the lifespan. This theory is important because it highlights what we understand about how we grow, how our environment, including our family members, impact our growth, and why some people experience identity crisis.
First is infant, birth 18 months. Trust versus mistrust. Important event of infant is feeding. Children develop a sense of trust when caregivers provide reliability, care, and affection. A lack of this will lead to mistrust. Next is school age, 6 to 11 years old. Industry versus inferiority. Important event of school age is school. Children need to cope with new social and academic demands. Success leads to a sense of competence, while failure results in feelings of inferiority. Next is adolescence, 11 to 18 years old. Identity versus role confusion. Important event of adolescence, social relationship. These develop their personal identity. Success leads to an ability to stay true to yourself, while failure leads to role confusion and weak sense of self. The next one is young adulthood, 19 to 40 years. Intimacy versus isolation. Important event of young adulthood is relationship. Young adulthood to form loving relationship with other people. Success leads to strong relationship, while failure results in loneliness and isolation. Middle adulthood, 40 to 65 years old. Generativity versus stagnation. Important event is work and parenthood. At this stage, adults prioritize on creating things that will outlast them. Often by having children, success leads to feelings of usefulness and accomplishment, while failure results in shallow. Maturity, 65 to death. Ego, integrity versus despair. Important event is reflection on life. Older adults tend to reflect on their lives and feel a sense of fulfillment. Success at this stage leads to feeling of wisdom, while failure results in regrets and despair.
Our topic is about true self and fake self. In this topic, we will know more about how much we really know if we are true to ourselves or we are just pretending. What is the true self? The true self refers to a sense of self based on authentic experience and the feeling of being true, present, and alive. This is the example of true self. A person might work hard at their job and also spend time with family. They might believe that their job is just something they do, but the importance they place on family relationship is part of the true self. And also, how do you express your true self? Means to live your values, know what is important to you and pursue it without hesitation, accept others for who they are, share what is going on for you, especially during difficult times. Let those you work or live with know if something is not working for you. The next one is fake self. It's a part of ourselves that has altered its behavior, repressed feelings, and disregarded needs into survive. The true self is represented by our true sentiments and desires. Fake self, by contrast, denotes a sense of self created as a defensive facade. Why do people have a fake self? According to the 20th century influential English psychoanalyst and child psychiatrist Donald Winnicott, the fake self is an artificial persona that people create very early in life to protect themselves from re-experiencing developmental trauma, shock, and stress in close relationship. What is the fake self example? Real-life examples of the fake self are based around certain beliefs that we take on in order to fit into our world better. Example, if I am pretty, I will be more likable. If I have a lot of money, I am successful. And if I work hard, achieve more, I will have more value. And also, we have 5 ways to be yourself. Number 1, give yourself permission to be authentic. Number 2, be honest with yourself. And number 3, admit that you don't know who you really are. Number 4, take responsibility. I make my life and no one else make it for me. And lastly, stop projecting your self-doubt, insecurities, second-guessing, and fear on others. Albert Bandura's proactive and agentic self. Banduras believed that through our agency, we humans are perceived as proactive agents of experiences. Through this agent or agency, we humans play a big role in our self-development, adaptation, and self-renewal. It is said that the human agency have 4 features. These features are intentionally forethought, self-reactiveness, and self-reflectiveness. Intentionality, proactive, commitment to bring about the future course of action. Forethought, your action plan, anticipation of future event maximize your chances for a successful outcome. Self-reactiveness, motivation, and self-regulation to maintain a course of action. Evaluate it. Self-reflectiveness, ability to evaluate how effective we are at exercising our capacity of human agency. So, the proactive self refers to our self-initiated behavior where we act and take control of the future situation in advance rather than adjusting and simply reacting to the situation, waiting for something to happen. As such, this is our endeavors to solve the problem before it occurred. While agentic self-dim to be a proactive and self-regulated, where they have the power coin to have a self-directed action, or simply agentic self have control over their own goals and action in life, driven by their sense of ownership that they have within themselves.